Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Facts are important, so why don't we get to some facts? You were asked how many VA personnel have been let go, and you said 1,000, but this committee have been given information that there were some 2,400 who have been let go, and then you're trying to get back to 2019 numbers, which would be another 70 to 80,000. So what happened to the other 1,000 or so that we have been told have been released by the VA?
Welcome back to True Voice, guys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We break down news, politics, and real conversations that matter. Today, we're reacting to a pretty intense exchange, and this one got heated. Senator Mazie Hirono is questioning the VA secretary over major cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs, especially concerning DEI. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the way staff were let go, money was saved, and how that money was used after. And let me just say, this is the kind of government accountability we need more of, but it also shows how far we still have to go. Let's watch.
Following the court order, they're back employed.
I'm sorry?
Following the court order, they are back employed.
Okay, so in other words, when you fired all these people or let them go, that you didn't follow appropriate procedures and therefore you had to hire them back. That's not what I consider a process that is going to determine whether or not people are
I disagree with that
doing their
premise.
jobs.
We had one judge in one area do this. This court is still being litigated, so as you well know,
We have actually
litigation
had in other departments where they have fired people and other judges that have said you have to follow an actual procedure. So getting back to some factual information, in February 21, you claim that the VA has saved millions of dollars by firing staff. How much have you saved? You said millions. What's the amount?
Those millions in the round amount I'd have to get back, especially now with those who've come back, there's probably a different number that I'd have to get back with you on.
Aren't you prepared to give us that information, knowing that you are testifying, knowing that you will probably be asked for factual information such as this? So you don't know, even if you said in February that you saved millions of dollars by firing staff. And then you said,
well, let me re-clarify there.
Let me finish my question,
well, we did
please.
say 14 million when we got rid of when we did away with our DEI.
You say $14 million.
DEI.
Okay, so then my next question is, where is all that money going? I have a series of questions relating to your comments on February 21st. So you said millions of dollars. Now you're testifying. First you said you would have to get back to me, but now you're saying 14 million. Also, by cutting unnecessary programs, can you tell me what unnecessary programs specifically you have cut? And then you've redirected those savings, some 14 million, you say today, to veterans. And I would like to know specifically where these monies were redirected. Do you have that information
The
today?
number that I gave you just now on the DEI was the 14 million. Those have been directed to those with disabilities and prosthetics. We've also had a part of that millions was also contracts that were either terminated or renegotiated that we were in the process of doing.
I think you need to tell
as well.
us exactly what contracts have been terminated, because that's what that's the thing about a contract. You know, when you terminate it, you have to have a reason for that. Otherwise, you end up having to pay.
Senator,
So,
also in the contracts, you also have to when you're going through contracts and renegotiation, you also have to make sure that you're doing it properly. We're going to give you all the information you need when those are actually finished.
I would hope that you would have had all that specific information today. You have about 500,000 employees at the VA?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Does
you.
that sound right? You have 500,000 employees at the VA?
No, we do not.
What is some number of?
About 470.
Okay, that's getting pretty close to 500,000.
Yeah,
So,
it's a little high.
in what categories are they employed? I mean, for example, how many nurses, how many doctors? Do you have this 470,000 employees broken down by categories of jobs?
Well, that is part of our problem, Senator, and I laid that out in my opening statement and also in my conversation with.
But you don't know.
No, and
You don't have that.
Let me say something.
You don't have that information.
Let me say something. Yes, we have over 300,000, probably closer to 400,000 position titles. But you know what the problem is?
Thank you. That
Before
would
I
help.
ever got there, we couldn't even find some of these when our HR people started to look at. So we took what we had at that point.
Let me proceed.
Well, I just want you. If you want a direct answer, then I'm giving you a direct answer.
You have a lot of people who are working for you. I would like to know, because there are questions about
Well,
who
and
are
I'm
you
trying to answer
actually
your question.
going to let go when you get to the 2019 numbers that is your goal. So you were asked some questions about the clinical trials. That's very important to provide healthcare services to our veterans when they are enrolled in clinical trials. Do you know how many clinical trials are on pause? And do you know how many veterans are in clinical trials?
I'd have to get that number back to you.
Is it 10? Is it more than, are we talking about 1,000 clinical
No,
trials?
we're not
When you
talking
put,
about, but again, here's the question.
Can you give me a ballpark
I will
figure on?
No, I'm not going to ballpark because it'll be
Okay,
used
so you
against me
don't
next
know.
time I'm
You don't
here.
know how many people that you have put on pause so that they are not getting the healthcare services that they need, because that's what a clinical trial is. You are getting medication, you are seeing doctors, you put these trials on pause. You cannot tell me how many veterans are now being paused in their clinical trials. You cannot tell me how many veterans are enrolled in clinical trials. You also cannot tell me how many clinical trials impact some, well, you have over 9 million veterans that you are taking care of. Clinical trials are very important, and you said so yourself. Mr. Chairman, I have other questions. You know, it's very clear that our secretary has not come with much in the way of numbers, and I really don't know how he's going to go about getting to 2019 figures for cutting employees, and he can't tell us what the categories of employees are, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're going to need to hear from Mr. Secretary again. Mr. Secretary, would you commit to coming back to this committee to provide us the kind of information we are asking for and to respond to questions?
I will get you the information that you asked for, which is
Will
what we've been doing.
will you come back to testify, or is this it for us with you,
I will
Mr.
get you the information
Secretary?
that you're looking for, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, we're not getting any commitment from the Secretary that he will come back to this committee to provide us the responses to our questions. Thank you.
Senator
That says a
Tillis.
lot.
Good morning, Secretary.
Good morning.
How are you doing? I guess it may
Having
be
a ball.
afternoon.
So let's start with this. The VA reportedly let go of around 1,000 people. But Hirono points out that the committee was told it was closer to 2,400. That's not just a small difference. That's a whole 1,400 people. You can't mess around with numbers like that, especially when you're talking about people's jobs and veterans care. And here's where it gets more complicated. Turns out a court ordered that many of those people be rehired. That tells me the process for letting them go was flawed. If you're going to fire that many people, there better be legal grounds, proper procedures, and transparency. Otherwise, it's chaos, and veterans end up suffering for it. Then we get into the DEI discussion. The Secretary says cutting DEI programs saved about $14 million. Now here's the thing. Whether you support DEI programs or not, the key question here is, where did that money go? And the VA couldn't give a straight answer. First, the Secretary said he'd have to get back to the committee on the numbers. Then he suddenly says $14 million. Then when asked where it went, he vaguely mentions that it went to those with disabilities and prosthetics and some contract changes. That's not enough. When you say you're redirecting $14 million, taxpayer dollars, to help veterans, you better show the receipts. Tell us exactly which programs were funded, what improved, and how many veterans benefited. Don't just drop buzzwords like prosthetics and hope that satisfies everyone. This is real money, real lives. It also came out that some savings came from canceling or renegotiating contracts. But again, no details. What contracts? Why were they canceled? Were penalties involved? Are veterans losing out on services because of this? This isn't how you manage the largest healthcare system in the country. The VA should be run with military precision. Instead, it feels like no one knows who's doing what. This one hit me hard. The Secretary didn't even have a breakdown of what types of employees make up the VA's 470,000 person workforce. Nurses? Doctors? Admins? No idea. He actually said that when HR started digging into job categories, they couldn't even find the data. That's terrifying. How can you plan staffing, hiring, or even cuts when you don't know what jobs people are doing? You don't need to be a senator to know that's a problem. That's basic leadership. Then we get to what I think is the most disturbing part, the pause on clinical trials for veterans. Senator Hirono asked straight up, how many clinical trials are on hold? How many veterans are affected? Are these life-saving treatments? And the Secretary couldn't even give a ballpark number. Clinical trials are often the last hope for veterans dealing with severe conditions. This isn't paperwork we're talking about. It's life or death. If you're putting trials on pause and can't even say how many or who's impacted, you've lost the plot. This whole exchange made one thing really clear. Our veterans, the men and women who serve this country, deserve so much better. You can't claim to be saving money if you can't show where it went. You can't say you're reforming the VA if you don't know who works there or what they do. And you definitely can't put people's health care on hold and act like it's no big deal. To top it all off, the VA Secretary wouldn't even commit to coming back to testify again. That's a red flag. If you're confident in your actions and data, why wouldn't you agree to follow up? This is Congress. This is public service. Accountability isn't optional. Look, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or independent. We should all be able to agree that our veterans should never be the ones left in limbo. Senator Hirono asked the right questions. And while I don't always agree with every politician, I respect when someone shows up prepared, demands facts, and fights for the people they represent. We need transparency. We need data. We need leadership. Because where is all that money going isn't just a headline. It's the question every taxpayer and every veteran deserves an answer to. Thanks for watching, folks. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this hearing? Do you trust the way the VA is handling these changes? Should DEI cuts happen if the money's not clearly reallocated? As always, stay informed, stay involved, and stay loud. Because democracy only works when we hold people accountable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.